Thanks for the great intro. My name is Jung SUH. I am currently the VP of Global Publishing for Yodo1. For those of you not familiar, Yodo1 is one of the largest independent mobile game publishers for China. And I believe I'm giving sort of a post-mortem on one of our games that we co-produced with another studio inside of Shanghai. And kind of going to talk about it in the genre or in the realm of games as a service. So, getting right to it, the game title is actually Oh My God's TD. It's a tower defense game, free-to-play game. I don't know if has anyone in this room played it. Oh, hey, how's it going? Obviously, it's based on the Greek mythology of the Olympic gods. So the towers get replaced by the gods, and there's moving heroes. Give you a little background. What I'm hoping to convey here is at a high level some of the things that both from a development side and from a publishing side we learned as we produced the game. One of the things that it was really an important takeaway is that freemium, as we know, is a totally very different beast than making either a AAA title or a premium title. So that was some lessons we learned. Obviously, designing a game for fun is the core of any game, but making changes need to be based on data, especially in the new world. You just can't make changes haphazardly and expect consistent results. Don't underestimate the workload for globalizing or culturalizing a game. If you're looking at a worldwide market, a lot of work to be done. Can be very quickly underestimated, not only in just languages, but changes in art, potential breaks in UI just because one set of characters can be much longer. And also a little self-serving, but having a good publishing partner helps dramatically in geographies that you're not familiar with. So now I'm actually this guy, semi-suit. He's managing a business globally, coming out of a larger company, Activision, Disney, EA. Pre-launch of the title, I was actually part of the development team that made this game. So I joined Yodo1 soon after launching the title with them. We brought on Yodo1 about 3/4 of the way through the project, and they helped us significantly work through some of the issues. So I'm hoping to give you guys a perspective from both sides of the table, from both the development team as I worked inside of the team, and then post-launch where we did some things to help launch the title. And to give you a little background on that team, it was really an indie studio. It was 12 people at the time, had some few early hits. Really common scenario, I think, of a lot of mobile app studios, really small, had some hits, made enough money to keep the doors open with a combination of work for hire and the money we were making off the games, but never had the home run. So this is where we actually, when we started making the games, we actually brought in Yodo1, and let me also give you a little quick info on Yodo1. As I said, it's one of the most largest publishers inside of China. We're actually about 160 million active game users inside of our network. We're ranked 4 on iOS by App Annie, I think right after let's see, it's a Gameloft, Tencent, Electronic Arts, my former employer. And we get about 10 million active new gamers per month inside of China, and continues to grow. We're also probably the most featured independent publisher in China on both iOS and on Android. We handle all of the Zepto Labs Cut the Rope franchise, their whole portfolio inside of China. We also handle Ski Safari, which has had about 80 million downloads. We have also studios in China, Nanjing, Beijing, Shanghai, as well as Korea and Japan. So we believe that whenever we take a game into a country and culturalize it, that we need to have local teams in there to help that process. So we launched the game November 27th. And we were able to actually get a feature with Apple. So one of the things that I think is really important with publishing game is having that ability to get the organic traffic and getting a feature spot, which I think a good publishing partner, or if you already have that type of relationship with Apple or with any of the app stores, that you really should try to pursue. Over the time period, we had it hit number 5 overall in the iPhone free section, number 1 in action, top grossing in the US, 140, and 89 in China. Obviously, we have a large space in China. Also, good reviews. We average about 4.5 stars across today still, so it's a pretty well-received game. Some of the things that we, as from the development perspective, didn't recognize early, because many of our designers and teammates actually come from more of the core premium, was that the freemium market, again, is very different. One of the things that we did was, from the mentality of a premium player, oftentimes we as gamers just sort of skip out on the tutorial, press skip. We learned that actually is not helpful. When we launched the first week of the title, our day 1 retention numbers were not very strong. 28% was D1. The place where you want to be is closer into the 40s mark. This actually leads to the whole point of games as a service. You need to, in this new marketplace, constantly change. Look at the data that's coming in through whatever analytics tools you might be using. Look at player retention. The 3 metrics that we look as a business is always about data around retention, conversion, and then monetization. The number 1 thing that you always have to pay attention to is retention. No matter what else there is, if you're losing players, you're not going to monetize or convert them. So unbeknownst to us, we thought we were being very clever and shortening the tutorial levels. What we didn't realize was we were actually in one of these, this is one of the levels, we were actually teaching not only 1, 2, 3, 4 new things. And for a core gamer, this was fine. But even the mid-core area on the freemium model, people were overwhelmed by this, and we saw a very large cliff drop-off after this level. Particularly if you're interested in entering the Chinese market, which is currently number 3 and probably will surpass number 2 this year in mobile games, you need to have a very simple tutorial. You need to constantly change that and update that. And it's almost, in China alone, it's almost like being on rails. They need a lot of hand-holding, which is very different than sort of the free-form sandbox, skip through the tutorial mentality that you have in the West. So this is a real early learning that we took on. We also eventually turned this tutorial lesson originally from 3 levels. We doubled the level amount to 7 levels. And in each level, we only teach 1 more thing. Now the D1 numbers are in the solid 40s, hovering around 38 to about 42% on average. The other thing that, again, is important is, again, data-driven. When we first built out our stores, the stores were hard-coded in so that items can be updated, but we couldn't price change, we couldn't move images around, we couldn't actually have sales. You have to think about your game almost as a retail floor where you're updating the mannequins, you're actually changing the prices, you're moving things around. So in the newest build and updates, we began to create abilities. So all the changes that you see now here, whether we're doing bestseller banners, doing price changes, creating new bundles, are all done by server side. There are lots of companies that can help you do that, commercially viable companies, or you can also build that out on the server side, depending on the size of your dev team. That has increased our conversion significantly. The other thing, you gotta get good data tools. If you don't have the tools to look at the data, you're really running your business on instinct. This is another area where, from the development side, coming from a premium model, we didn't have the experience to actually work with these as much. We went with initially some of the free data analytics. Yodo1 allowed us to actually start using more of the commercial products. So now we use Upside for some of the analytics there. So we're able to track all the retention numbers, do funnels, segmentation, and it's a daily operational exercise that you have to go through. Every morning, our team sits there and looks at the numbers and sees what's going on. What did a weekend or an event sale do to the numbers? How did it go up? How did it go down? Did a slight change in art impact retention? Did it impact sales? And it becomes an important aspect. There are actually a lot of good free packages out there. I can think of Flurry that gives you data. At least minimally use that. You've got AppAnnie that'll give you at least a set of numbers. You've got Fusebox that has a shared revenue model, but it's free to use all their core metrics. So you've got to install these tools in there to run it as a service. Otherwise, you're really flying blind. Good project management tools. Super important. I can't tell you how important it is as the business gets more and more complex. The funny thing for us was we, as a small team, we were using a lot of Google Docs. Big no-no if you're in China. Google gets blocked quite often. We moved very quickly to Trello, which also has a basic free system. Cards if you're in the Kanban, any kind of agile iteration process. Great. Has its limits. So it depends on the size and the scope of your project. We hit that project after about World 3. We just had too many cards going on. And so we eventually got onto Hansoft as Yodo1 began to systematize and centralize all their project management systems. That's a commercial product. It's a little expensive. There are other solutions out there, but you've got to get project management in there, especially when your teams get anywhere past 6 to 8 people. It's very challenging to manage, particularly if you're releasing a project globally. You're going to have to handle at least the EFIG languages. You're going to have to handle different art sources. You're going to have a lot of communication going on. So globalization and culturalization. I think a fundamental mistake that most people make is it's not just about language. There's quite a bit that occurs here, and these are some examples of what we had to go through. Our initial set of characters that we designed, we had to make all of our Greek characters a little bit more cute, a little bit more acceptable on both the Western and Eastern sort of cultural taste. We, early on in the first quarter, so there's actually a Chinese New Year which happens in February each year. We created a new god, it's called Tyson in Chinese, who's the god of money / fortune, and got introduced as part of the mythology of gods. The whole point of the game was originally to introduce additional gods. So by localizing and adding additional culturalization on the game itself, it dramatically increased the conversion and monetization. Our current population is about 50% in China. So again, this all has to do with the fact that making games now is sort of a continuous effort. There's no, I just ship the game and we'll let it sit in the store shelves and generate revenue. You've got to constantly update and put in the effort. And to give you an idea, we also had to do a lot of translations. So Zeus became Zhou. Chinese translations, Thunder God, Artemis is Artemis, and Phaistos, can't even pronounce in English properly. So all this is this continuous work of developing the game, treating it as a service, making the adjustments that you need to for each market that you're going to attack. And obviously, if you're going to be in Asia and you want to be in the Chinese market, you have to do a lot of work to make it contextually proper. On the more technical aspect of it, you also need to pay attention, particularly in the Chinese market, sort of the Android device type, the adaptation around it. There's a huge distribution around screen size, as you can tell. And also, there is a large array of devices, but a majority of them are local. So again, you have to make these sort of adjustments to the content you're building. You can see that only a few are Samsung high-end devices. The rest are all mid to low-end devices that will run the game. So It's a big, huge effort to constantly update, make sure you're optimizing your game, and again, treating it as a service. You're constantly changing it, making sure it'll work and run. Most of China in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, you're going to also run into download caps. So one, 4G is just rolling out in China, so there's not a lot of 4G. Wi-Fi is still not prevalent. Most of China is still on 3G at best, and often on GPRS Edge. Monthly caps of downloadable content, 25 megs to 50, maybe 75 megs is their monthly cap. So you got to imagine, we're used to 100 megs or below over-the-air downloads, a couple of 100 megabytes on a game basis. Overall, we optimize most of our game content to download at about a 35 megabyte limit. So games as a service, you're constantly changing your content, constantly optimizing it for the areas that you're focused on. The other aspect that's really important is live ops. So live ops become incredibly important, particularly in Asia, because that is what drives retention, spending, conversion, monetization. We happen to have, as a service, a social platform for KT. It's embedded in all of our games in China. You can see at the bottom here that there's cross-promotion happening. There's boards here where discussions are going on, promotions, feedback, customer service. All these are available with this SDK. For Olympus, we actually customize this. Basically, it gives instant community. It'll tell you exactly how many players are in the game at that time, notifications for events. For the first 6 months of the product, we had one customer support rep handling about almost 1 million users directly through this. We're able to refund directly with in-game currency through this. We're able to hold daily, weekly events through this. People share tips, share photos. Community winds up becoming a very important aspect to the game development process, post-launch, and again, as a service, you want to create community. You want to have the ability to create events, and it's live ops. It really is daily, weekly things that you have to do. You have to address the customer. So that becomes a very important aspect of games as a service. Lastly, I think this is sort of a give me, but you have to do constant updates, and the marketing efforts have to be constant. In China, in particular, on the Android side, which is about 80% of the market, there is no chart boosting. There are no ranking systems. So you have to be very clever about things. They expect updates. On the iOS side, there is charts, and you can use CPI and user acquisition strategies. But on Android, there's none. You have to go and cut deals with every telco out there, the 3 major mobile networks. You have to go and do the deals with the 400 or so app stores that exist in the Android ecosystem, of which probably the top 30 are the largest. But updates. So we're constantly doing new worlds and additional gods. These two will actually be coming out very soon. And then some unique things. We'll be doing a marketing campaign with Red Fu, who's I guess he's the one of 2 characters in LMFAO. This will be something that we come out with very soon. Marketing again, you'll have to think of new and unique ways of pushing your game, right? It's the CPI, the user acquisition is one aspect of it. And so we've integrated him. He's going to be a hero in our game. And just to give you an idea of what he kind of does this, I don't know if this has sound, I guess. So he's got 2 power-ups. One is when he powers up, he causes all of the enemies to dance and not move. If there are gods in there, obviously that they would go another way. And if you know anything about Red Fu, he also loves zebras. So he has a zebra power-up. We're doing this type of marketing as a publisher because we think that we should innovate. This is done obviously in any of the other media industries. He gets something like 35 million views on his YouTube channels, has several million followers on Twitter and so forth. So we'll be doing a product release together with him. So that's it. Thank you.
OMG. FTW. GJ.
GJ.
Good job.
Oh, did not know this.
Yeah. Excellent talk. Really like the idea of thinking of localization as more than just language, as culturalization. What are one or two of the things culturally that we would find shocking or amazing? Like, for example, I had a villain in a game that when we took it to Spanish, the villain's name translated as El Molesto. Like, what are some of the things that you found while culturalizing that just didn't quite work?
Sure, I don't know about the shocking. So there obviously high school prom games just don't work. There's no proms in high school in China. So some of the, like fraternity, college, high school kind of things don't cross over well. Humor is really hard to do. What we find very funny isn't necessarily going to translate very funny in Asia.
That's not true. I'm funny in every language.
You are indeed.
Seriously.
What else is? Certain things are not well received by central government. Things obviously around the government, criticism of the government. There might be things, as people already know, things around violence, zombies in certain formats don't work really well. Things that you would really never expect to trigger anything here as well. And art is also very important. The view of a Western masculine dude, the Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of look, doesn't fly very well in Asia. It's still currently more of the elfin K-pop kind of look and feel that does really well. So if you're looking for a template, looking at Japanese and Korean style art, I know K-pop and K-drama is incredibly popular now all over the world. That's a good template to take a look at if you're looking at China and entering the Chinese space.
Okay, any questions? Okay, we got lots.
Thanks very much. Very interesting talk. You mentioned you're doing a lot of stuff on the server side because this is games as a service. And actually, just a moment ago, you talked about how the central government, there's some issues you have to deal with there. I know that if you're serving content in China, there are a number of issues. I'm just wondering if you could talk just very, very briefly about any of the bureaucratic or registration requirements or even latency if you publish new content, how long it takes to get it out into the game.
Oh, okay. So, let me address the bureaucratic and the government licensing issues. So on the PC website and the console, which just sort of got approved in the last few months, there has been new announcements and regulations around approval and licensing. We're looking at that fairly closely, but as so far, mobile hasn't really been scrutinized as much as PC web style games. But generally the things you want to stay away from is gambling and criticism, right? And you don't want to all of a sudden say, hey, yay, go Japan in a game. It's just going to cause attention. So bureaucracy aside, the ecosystem on mobile behaves pretty similarly. You can upload a binary to Apple. iOS works functionally exactly the same, except it shows up in Pinyin rather than Mandarin. On the Android side, you do have to do what I call hand-to-hand business development, which means each app store that you deal with, you're going to have separate deals, one. Two, most app stores on the Android ecosystem have their own SDKs. Three, they don't want you to leak traffic away from them, so they prevent any ad banners or things that are not from their own ad network. They don't allow you to have video installs, and even if they did, video would be really hard because of bandwidth issues. So that takes a little bit more effort, but on the whole, if you have staff or good publishers, then you can get the games through. But as of yet, there's nothing that makes the bureaucracy any worse or better than anything else at the moment.
Okay, so we're a little bit short on time, shorter than I thought, but you will be available to meet your fans and adoring public, right?
Yeah.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, Jung SUH.
Thank you so much.